Every story we tell is a journey, a thrilling adventure that will keep you hooked from start to finish. Before we begin, let us know where you're watching from. We love seeing our community come together from all around the world. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Tomorrow, we have a special story just for you. Trust us, you won't want to miss it. See you on the next adventure. A silent soldier versus a furious attacker. Who will win? Logan Hayes tightened his grip on the 45-pound steel chain hidden inside his jacket. His fingers traced the cold, heavy links as he stared across the grand courtyard of Buckingham Palace. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with something far more dangerous. Purpose. Across the polished stone, standing in absolute stillness, was his target. Sergeant William Barrett, a royal guard, dressed in his crisp red tunic and tall bearskin cap. His rifle was held at the exact regulation angle, his white-gloved hands motionless, his gaze locked forward. To the tourists gathered nearby, Barrett was a living statue, a symbol of British tradition, a man trained to never react. But to Logan? He was something else entirely. A representation of everything that had failed his brother. Logan clenched his jaw beneath the black tactical mask covering his face. His brother, Corporal Jake Hayes, had given everything: 3 brutal tours in Afghanistan, a chest full of medals, a body scarred by war. And what did he get in return? Nothing. No support. No help. Just nightmares that wouldn't end. Until one day, they did. Logan's hands tightened around the chain, his breath steadying. He had spent weeks watching the Royal Guards, studying their movements, or rather, their lack of movement. Their discipline was famous. Their silence, legendary. But he didn't believe it. He was convinced that, when faced with real aggression, they would break. And today? He was going to prove it. Logan stepped forward, pushing past a group of camera-wielding tourists, his boots thudding against the stone. A few people glanced at him, sensing something off. A 77-year-old veteran with a cane standing near the gate shifted his stance, his sharp eyes locking onto Logan. The tension thickened. 15 feet from Sergeant Barrett, Logan came to a halt. His heartbeat steadied, his fingers curling around the chain inside his jacket. It was time. He let out a slow breath, then spoke, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. This is what they call discipline. The tourists fell silent. The guard didn't move. Didn't even blink. Logan smiled beneath his mask. That would change soon. A heavy silence settled over Buckingham Palace's courtyard. The usual hum of tourists chatting, camera shutters clicking, and children laughing faded into nothing. All eyes were on Logan Hayes. Standing just 15 feet from Sergeant William Barrett, he could feel the weight of the crowd's unease pressing in around him. Some had started whispering, others had already reached for their phones, sensing something was about to happen. But the guard? Still. Unmoving. A pillar of discipline. Logan took a slow step forward, his boots grinding against the stone, his voice dropping to a low, mocking growl. "I've been watching you," he said, his tone laced with venom. "You stand here, day after day, motionless, for what? Tourists? Tradition? While real soldiers get chewed up and spit out?" Still, no reaction. Logan let out a sharp laugh, shaking his head. "That's the problem with you people." His fingers curled around the 45-pound steel chain hidden inside his jacket. "All for show. No substance." The crowd began to shift. A father pulled his daughter closer, whispering for her to stay back. A middle-aged woman in a floral dress frowned in disapproval but didn't dare speak. Near the entrance, the elderly veteran with the cane adjusted his grip, his sharp eyes narrowing. He had seen men like Logan before. Logan took another step forward, closing the distance. 12 feet. 10. The air grew thick with tension. Somewhere behind him, a security officer had taken notice. A hand moved to a radio. Low murmurs crackled through the static. Logan didn't care. His focus was locked on Barrett. He could see the faint reflection of the palace gates in the guards' polished boots. Could hear the distant flutter of the Union Jack. And yet, nothing from Barrett. "Nothing to say?" Logan taunted, tilting his head. "Maybe you're just not real. Maybe this whole thing, your uniform, your rifle, your discipline, maybe it's all just a lie." No movement. No words. Just silence. Logan exhaled, his pulse steady. "That's fine," he thought. "I'll make you move." His fingers tightened around the chain. And in a single, fluid motion, he pulled it from his jacket. The clinking of steel cut through the thick, uneasy silence. In one swift motion, Logan Hayes ripped the 45-pound chain from his jacket, the heavy metal links rattling as they uncoiled in his grip. The chain swung once, catching the afternoon light as gasps rippled through the crowd. A mother yanked her child back. A man in a baseball cap cursed under his breath, fumbling for his phone. But Sergeant William Barrett didn't move. Logan took a slow step forward, the chain swaying at his side like a weapon waiting to strike. "I wonder," he said, his voice dropping to a sharp edge. "How much discipline does it take before something snaps?" Still, the guard remained frozen. The chain lashed through the air, whistling as Logan swung it toward Barrett's head. A collective gasp shot through the courtyard. But in the blink of an eye, everything changed. Barrett moved. Faster than anyone expected, he pivoted, the ceremonial rifle in his hands snapping up with precision. The polished wooden stock deflected the chain, sending the heavy links clattering against the stone pavement. Logan stumbled, caught off guard. That wasn't supposed to happen. He recovered quickly, gripping the chain tighter, preparing for another strike. "Come on," he snarled. "Fight back like a real soldier." Barrett didn't flinch. Didn't lunge. Didn't break. Instead, he waited. Measured. Calculated. The Royal Guard wasn't just standing still, he was controlling the fight. Logan's breathing hitched. He'd planned for Barrett to hesitate, to panic, to finally break discipline. But now, for the first time since this began, doubt crept in. Barrett shifted, his movements sharp, controlled. His rifle, once just a ceremonial piece, was now an extension of his combat training. The security officers were closing in, voices barking into radios. But Logan didn't care. His grip tightened. His pulse hammered. One more chance. With a growl, he swung the chain again, full force, aiming for the guard's chest. Barrett sidestepped. His rifle spun in a blur. In an instant, Logan was no longer attacking. He was falling. A hard impact against the stone courtyard. The chain slipped from his fingers. And as Logan gasped for air, staring up at the man he thought was defenseless, he realized his mistake. He had just picked a fight he couldn't win. Logan hit the stone courtyard hard, the impact knocking the wind from his lungs. His ears rang, his vision blurred for a split second. The 45-pound chain, his weapon, his statement, lay useless beside him, the metal links rattling against the pavement. He had lost control. And Sergeant William Barrett? Still standing. Still unshaken. Still in complete command. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some people cheered, others stood frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. A royal guard, who was supposed to be nothing more than a ceremonial figure, had just taken down an armed attacker in seconds. Logan tried to push himself up, but before he could react, Barrett moved. Not with aggression. Not with anger. With precision. With purpose. In one controlled motion, he pressed Logan's wrist against the ground, securing him effortlessly. There was no unnecessary force, no rage, just calculated, military efficiency. Logan struggled, his breath ragged. This wasn't supposed to happen. He had expected hesitation. Fear. Anything but this. The sound of rushed footsteps filled the air. 2 armed security officers approached, their radios crackling. "Stay down," one of them ordered, reaching for his cuffs. But before they could restrain him, Barrett spoke for the first time. His voice wasn't angry. It was calm. Steady. Unshaken. "What was your brother's name?" The words hit Logan harder than the fall. For the first time, his body stopped fighting. He blinked, his mind stumbling over the question. Why was he asking that? A long, heavy pause. Then, without thinking, Logan muttered, "Jake. Corporal Jake Hayes. Royal Marines. Afghanistan. 2013. Sergeant Barrett stared down at him. His grip didn't tighten. It didn't loosen. But something in his eyes changed. Recognition. Barrett gave the smallest nod. "I knew of him." Logan's pulse spiked. You knew my brother? Barrett's next words made the world tilt beneath him. His unit covered my squad during an ambush. 3 of my men made it home because of him. Logan froze. Everything around him faded, the tourists, the security, the chain lying in the courtyard. For the first time, his anger cracked. And beneath it, there was only grief. Logan lay still, his breath coming in short, uneven gasps. The weight of Sergeant William Barrett's words pressed down harder than the soldier's grip on his wrist. 3 of my men made it home because of him. His brother, Jake, wasn't just another forgotten name lost in the system. He mattered. He saved lives. And the man Logan had just tried to attack. He knew that. He respected that. For the first time, the rage that had fueled him for so long flickered, and started to fade. The security officers moved in, one kneeling beside him, cuffs ready. "Let's go, mate. You're done here." Logan didn't fight. He didn't struggle. The fight was already gone. Barrett released his hold, standing back with military precision as the officers lifted Logan to his feet. A hush had fallen over the courtyard. The crowd, once tense with fear, now watched in stunned silence. Then, from the side, the elderly veteran with the cane stepped forward. His weathered face was lined with experience, the kind of wisdom that came from seeing too much. "Son, we've all carried that anger," he said, his voice steady. "But this isn't how you honor him." Logan swallowed hard, his throat dry. "What else was I supposed to do?" His voice cracked. No one cared. No one listened. He gave everything, and they left him with nothing. Barrett's gaze didn't waver. "I care." The words hit Logan like a gut punch. He wanted to argue. To fight back. To hold on to the anger. But for the first time in years, he didn't know what to say. Barrett stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The Royal Marines don't forget their own. There are people who can help, people who knew Jake, who fought beside him. If you're willing, I can make sure you find them." Logan's hands were still shaking. His mind screamed at him to reject the offer, to cling to his fury. But something deep inside knew the truth. Jake wouldn't have wanted this. With a final glance at Sergeant Barrett, Logan let out a shaky breath. As the officers led him away, he realized something. For the first time in years, he wasn't sure if he still wanted to fight. If you were in Sergeant Barrett's position, how would you have reacted? Would you have shown the same discipline and restraint, or would anger have taken over? And what about Logan? Do you think his grief justified his actions, or was there a better way for him to honor his brother? We want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let's discuss. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. Let me know if you'd like any tweaks to fit your style.